I'm Stephen Foskett, publisher of Gestalt IT, and we're here at KubeCon North America 2022 in beautiful Detroit. We're catching up with some enterprise tech companies, including Portworx.
Hi, I'm Venkat Ramakrishnan with Portworx. I run products and engineering for Portworx.
Well, it's great to see you here. Portworx has a great reputation in the cloud community. What is Portworx announcing at KubeCon?
Portworx is announcing, four major things today. The first and the foremost is we're announcing our Portworx Enterprise, which is a flagship data management and storage product for Kubernetes and containers. We're announcing a managed Portworx service, Portworx Enterprise service, which would be a managed service that would run on any cloud and any Kubernetes cluster, but managed by Portworx for our customers. The next big announcement is we're also announcing our next generation Portworx Enterprise stack, which is Portworx Enterprise 3.0. And it comes with it is what we call as PX Fast, which is our high-speed, low-latency edition of Portworx that can deliver millions of IOPS in a single server to a lot of applications, driving container density up a lot and also supporting a lot of transactional high-speed apps. The third announcement is we're also announcing what is called a near sync DR. We're expanding our DR capabilities. We today support synchronous and asynchronous DR. The third set in the package is our near sync DR, where we can replicate or do DR across a like a low latency link, but like a sub-second RPOs. For example, a 50-millisecond link and deliver sub-second RPOs. And the other big announcement is regarding our object store, where we're introducing a scale-out object service integrated into our Portworx Enterprise product. And the last one is our backup as a service product, which is a free forever tier. Up to a developer can store up to 1 terabyte of the data forever with our backup as a service product for Kubernetes.
So let's dive into these a little bit more in depth. As I mentioned, Portworx has a great reputation. The enterprise cloud developers really, really love it as a way to bring storage into Kubernetes. And tell us a little bit more about Managed Portworx Enterprise, because my understanding is that this is really sort of Portworx as a service, right?
Yep. So as we work more with our customers, we see there's much larger deployments of Kubernetes and Portworx being deployed, and a lot of hundreds of Kubernetes clusters, right? What we wanted to deliver is a much more simplified user experience for our customers, so they don't have to be concerned about managing Portworx at a large scale. And so we abstracted some of the Portworx control plane and management plane aspects. We run it in the cloud, and we help manage these clusters for our customers. So we enable single-click deployment, zero-touch management of the entire Portworx deployment, as well as monitoring and proactive support and management of those clusters, so they can focus their efforts on running their infrastructure better and also building apps better than trying to tinker with the day-to operations of how to run a large-scale data cluster in Kubernetes.
Yeah. And I think that that's important because the whole goal, I think, of a lot of cloud native developers is that they really just don't want to have to worry about this stuff. That was one of the announcements that I loved from Pure Accelerate this year as well, was that Portworx is kind of doing these things for them and giving customers a service that allows them to kind of step away and not have to worry about running a database, you know. And it's great that it sounds like more and more of the Portworx experience is just available as a managed service.
Yep. Absolutely.
So you're also announcing the third iteration of the core Portworx product here. So tell us a little bit more. What's included in the core Portworx product now?
So the core Portworx product has always been like it's a complete data management and storage service, and a suite that has kind of worked for our customers, managing large scale persistent applications in Kubernetes, right? So what we have done with Portworx Enterprise 3.0 is we have taken a closer look at our data management stack. We have added more performance enhancements, and we have introduced what we call as PX Fast, which is our delivers a high throughput, low latency backend for these persistent Kubernetes applications. And with that, what we are delivering is higher density of apps and more performance intensive apps to be able to run in these Kubernetes clusters. For example, customers running high frequency trading platforms or high-speed analytics, real-time analytics that they have to take like split-second decisions to be able to kind of drive their businesses forward. Now can bring those applications into Kubernetes and run them at scale, and combining that with our managed service, they can do it with literally zero touch, no involvement from having to manage those large-scale clusters.
Yeah. And I think that that's important because one of the challenges I think some developers face is when they're trying to deploy apps in Kubernetes, it may work on their laptop or on their developer workstation at reasonable performance with a reasonable data set. But then once they try to deploy it in production, they may find that it's hard to get that level of performance in the cloud. And so Portworx can basically give them the kind of performance that they need for these latency sensitive applications.
Yeah.
So the next element of the new Portworx 3.0 is near sync DR. Now this is a service that a lot of enterprise storage people are familiar with, the idea that you could have nearly synchronous disaster recovery for a very low RPO. Tell us a little bit more, how does this work in the cloud?
Yeah, that's a great question. What near sync DR does is that it lets you build a DR cluster pair between two sites that are kind of geographically separated by a few hundred miles, but not a lot of higher latency. Like for example, around 30-40 milliseconds of latency. Right now, what it enables you to do is to set up get a DR capability that is a much more lower RPO. Like for example, sub-second RPOs. Right. So that means in case of a disaster that's hitting the local area, for example, hurricane in Florida, and if you have your data center in the adjacent state, you would be able to fail over your applications and then continue to run with very little lag in the data, right, with the near sync DR capability. Now, this can be run on data center, on any Kubernetes cluster. You can have couple of data centers that are geographically separate, but also you can run it in the cloud, and it brings interesting capabilities in the cloud, because today customers would love to deploy their applications and their clusters in two different regions, but there's no good way to get DR across those regions, especially in Kubernetes, right? So what it delivers is that ability to get the sub-second RPO failover from a Kubernetes cluster, for example, in the west region to a Kubernetes cluster in the east region, and with very little data lag in getting their applications up and running.
And I think that that's really important because a lot of enterprise cloud applications are actually run all in one region. Mm-hmm. And so it's high availability, but only within the region. And we see that sometimes with some of these internet outages, that it would be really beneficial to get this stuff multi-region. And theoretically, this could get them there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Now, the third part of the announcement is scale-out object service, which allows you to have a much larger object store than previously available?
Yeah, that's actually an interesting question, right? It's kind of slightly more than that, right? Okay. See, I mean, Portworx has always delivered the block and file interfaces on the same control plane. Mm-hmm. So what we are doing now is to integrate a scale-out object, creation and object service into our control plane, where it can integrate with any object store out there. Of course, including Pure's FlashBlade, plus the cloud, cloud object stores like S3 or Blob Store and everything. But what we were doing is we're helping automate all of the bucket creation, all the policy management, and all of the object-related enforcements and rate limiting and all of that within the Portworx control plane. So what it essentially delivers to our developers is they can now declaratively ask for a bucket in their pod spec, and they can just apply it. And Portworx control plane automatically takes care of working with the customer's S3 backend of choice, provisions the bucket, makes it available for those apps, and continues to kind of make sure when the applications fail over and all of that have access to that bucket, right? So we kind of bring that capability to customers. So it works with any object store out there, but it makes managing that object store a lot more easier. Plus, I mean, in real enterprise environments, if you go in there, just provisioning, and the object store is maintained by different teams, provisioning the objects, buckets, and making it available to applications, if it is not done inline through the Kubernetes path, will take its own time and it's kind of an offline process. We're trying to simplify that. Our purpose is we are here to make developers' life easy, right? This is part of that promise that we're delivering to them.
So another element of the announcement is backup as a service. Now, this is something that maybe people don't think of Portworx when they think of backup, but tell us more about this.
Yeah. So we've been shipping a, kind of a leading, number one of the number one solutions, leading solutions for backup in Kubernetes for about a couple of years. But about, a few months ago in the KubeCon Valencia in Spain, we announced backup as a service. That means it's a SaaS platform that you can self-sign up and then, point to your Kubernetes clusters and you can start backing up your applications and restoring it anywhere. So in that journey, what we realized is we ought to give the developers an ability to try out the platform first and kind of play with it more. So we are announcing a free forever, free tier of BaaS or backup as a service, where a developer can connect their Kubernetes clusters and they can back up to 1 terabyte of data for free forever. So it kind of lets them play with the enterprise capabilities plus the DevOps capabilities it comes up with and get themselves familiar with the number of different workflows it enables. And when they're ready to go in production, they know that they could leverage it and can rely on it, right? So that is part of the major announcement, stuff that we are doing in KubeCon is to get the BaaS freemium tier out, like a free tier of BaaS out.
That's great. And so it sounds like overall what I'm hearing is that Portworx is intended to be basically a one-stop shop for Kubernetes integrated storage components, whether it is backup and data protection, whether it's replication, object store, file, whatever it is that you're looking for. Pure is with Portworx is going to be able to deliver that, even if it's not directly connected to Pure storage hardware.
Yep. So so Portworx is, it's like Portworx and Pure, batteries included, but replaceable, right? We have of course, we heavily test our products together, it's one team, but at the same time, we're committed to open standards. So Portworx products work very well on all of the industry standard appliances and cloud stores. The key thing is what we wanted, the promise we are trying to deliver to our customers is we're trying to simplify the data management and data services workflow for Kubernetes so that we can continue to cut down the developer toil in the DevOps world, where they're bringing their apps, not only they're bringing their apps into Kubernetes, but they have to comply with security standards, make sure the application infrastructure is secure. They have to deal with how do you run applications in day 2, right? Not just day 0, and enabling them to continue to get the most out of their infrastructure and have more control over how apps are deployed and are run, right? So we're trying to continue to solve that end to end for our customers.
Well, that's great. So somebody who's not familiar with this, where can they connect with you and find out more about Portworx?
Well, we have a ton of good material available on www.portworx.com, and there's great resources on docs.portworx.com also to kind of look at all the different deployment models and all of that. So our customers can learn a lot going to both of these sites, and there are plenty of resources out there.
And also, I'll just mention that Portworx has presented at Tech Field Day a few times. So if you use your favorite search engine, search for Portworx and Field Day, you'll find some great deep dive videos into some of these capabilities as well. And if you go to Gestalt IT, you can find other articles and coverage of some of the developments that's happened with Portworx over the last few years. Thanks for joining us. It's great to have you here at KubeCon. Go to YouTube/Gestalt IT video for more video discussions from KubeCon 2022, and go to techfieldday.com for more deep dives into enterprise tech.